The Bad Guy's A Very Bad Holiday is unfortunately quite bad to the bone. I'm not trying to be cute here, it's just genuinely not very good. I remember quite a while ago when the trailer dropped and everyone flipped their shit, cause oh my god, no animation, ah! And I was like, guys, relax. Part of this reaction I assumed was attributed to the fact that the Dreamworks holiday specials actually tend to be pretty good. A fair amount of the time they seem to be made within the same pipelines as their respective films, so they look like they're movie-level budgets, and they bring back a lot of the same voice casts. They're relatively high quality. I remember at one point watching the Penguins holiday short every year. It's so good. And while the eventual TV show was not exactly performing at that level of excellence, it managed to bring enough of the wacky, funny hijinks, you know? It had a pacing that was very conducive to said wacky hijinks, and it managed to keep everything fresh over the course of 7-8 years? Of course, it helps to have the same two guys that created Kim Possible in your corner, developing it wholesale, literally 5 minutes after they're done with Kim Possible. But I did assume it would be easy enough to try and reach a similar tone for this, and they fell quite short of that mandate. The basic plot of the special establishes that the bad guys pull off an elaborate Christmas heist every year because everybody's at home celebrating the day, ergo they're leaving all of their shit unguarded. This is basically their version of Christmas, and when they accidentally destroy a well-beloved Santa balloon, it completely wrecks the holiday vibes. So in an attempt to save their annual heist, the bad guys are tasked with bringing back the holiday spirit. On paper, this is a pretty precise premise. I can vibe with this. It's also worth noting that the Dreamworks film was based off of a series of books, and the guy that originally wrote those books came back to write this special, which, while that is a respectful choice, in theory, I think that was actually one of the top mistakes that they made here. See, there's a lot of children's book authors and illustrators that eventually make the leap to animated television, but they usually take the leap back over to books. You know, it's not permanent. These are two very different mediums, and sometimes adaptations stick very close to the source material, and others are entirely different. As far as I can tell, Bro was pretty satisfied with how Dreamworks chose to adapt the bad guys, and working with them was always kind of on his agenda to begin with.
All the studios kind of got interested, and I went around in a very surreal week at the end of 2016, and I met all the studios, and a number of them were after it, but I just consistently gravitated to Dreamworks because they got it.
But what worked for a series of books wouldn't necessarily have worked entirely for the film or this special. I wouldn't say he's out of his element, but he definitely needed some more guidance here. Preferably from someone who already has experience working on a lot of the Dreamworks TV projects. Someone who understands the tone and the constraints of TV animation well enough to advise the writing. As a result of this choice, the dialogue is pretty stilted. If any of the 5 main characters are not on screen explicitly at any given time, you could forget that this is a bad guy's Christmas special. And honestly, while we're in that ballpark already, the vocal performances were just not very good. I would argue that issues within voice acting rarely come down to the actor themselves. It's on the voice director to nail that style and cadence for a specific character, especially if they're pre-established. As important as it would be to find competent sound-alikes, I think it is more important to find somebody that can embody the spirit of the character. Because even if that impression isn't 100%, if it doesn't feel like the character, the performance wouldn't feel right to begin with. Personally, I find all of these impressions quite weak, even for a special based off a really bombastic animated movie. These impressions seem quite exaggerative, ironically. Why is Wolf talking to me like he's a shitty Mr. Beast clone? He sounds like one of the fake ghost guys in that One Ralph video. You know the one?
Hi, this is Ralph Seppi, and welcome to Most Haunted. Today, we will be discovering if there's a ghost in the Wesley house by the name of Yankee Jam.
I don't really care if the actor himself can do a good Sam Rockwell It might help, but the job at hand was to do a good Mr. Wolf. And I'm not having a howling good time over here. The music is pretty unmemorable, but that's not really an issue for me. I guess on the whole, the least offensive part about it was the drop in animation quality. That's just kind of what you expect. I like to think that I'm pretty lenient on these types of details because I know what goes down behind the scenes. I know what type of work goes into satisfying all the notes and the mandates and the ideas for these adaptations. The pacing of the story itself was actually kind of dog water. 2/3 of the way through, they actually start trying to establish some emotional complexity. We start talking about this whole mission in the context of Wolf being an overachiever and overdoing things to satisfy the need to be close to his friends, but they don't dig into that at all, like it came out of nowhere. I don't even really understand why it ended the way it did. I think the attempts to try and keep the attention of the audience just weren't very successful. Just didn't make that much sense in the context of what we were watching. Apparently a lot of people feel the same way. Like damn, bitch, why'd you put him on blast like this? Why did all of you like this tweet? I'm kinda surprised by how poorly put together it was. Part of that is definitely due to the Dreamworks holiday special bias inherent in all of us, but yeah, I mean, just not very good. How could they do this? I mean, what shift could possibly have triggered something this Oh, there it is. I'm pretending like I'm surprised, but this had actually leaked a long time ago. Some sides for some of the main characters leaked, along with sides for an additional Dreamworks series that I will not bring up at this time. But it's clear that something like this was made within a TV pipeline, and theoretically this special could serve to be a pilot for the wider series. I hope it doesn't get undue criticism as a consequence of this special. I think part of the reason why this special struck a nerve with so many people goes back to the original trailer. The animation was easily the highlight of the film. I think, with all due respect, a lot of people tricked themselves into thinking that the bad guys was the pinnacle of animated storytelling, when it's not. It's not. It had a basic bitch story with basic bitch story beats, and what really grabbed you, what dragged you into the chaos, was the charisma that the characters have, the fidelity of the animation, the heart behind the message. Richard Iowati playing this cute-ass villainous hamster. I mean, all the elements are there. Fundamentally, the original film had a solid identity. Everybody knows what the fuck that is after they watch it. And while I would never expect for any of these specials to completely fall in line with their feature counterparts, I would expect something like this to build an identity for itself, especially if it's part of a wider project. And this one just has no soul, no identity whatsoever. Maybe it's growing pains, maybe things get better over time. I don't know, but I know this one just didn't have the heart. I haven't seen a whole lot of the recent Dreamworks cartoons. The fact that they made Muppet Babies Madagascar kind of freaked me out a little. I have not touched any of them since, but I can say at least that the ones that I grew up with did try to go for something different. It tried to keep the spirit of the characters intact, but they didn't stick to the exact line of thought, or the exact story, or even the exact timeline as their feature counterparts. And because of that willingness to step outside of the box, they're able to add something new onto their respective franchises that might not have been there before. Now, in this special's defense, in its minor defense, this is the first bad guys related piece of media to drop since the movie, other than like maybe a racing game. But this is really the first main one. So I think the expectations may have been a bit lofty, you know, they may have been a little too high, you know how expectations go for animated movies. But I think even for someone like me that would go in with little to no expectations, you know, I didn't have any clue of what this would be like. I was willing to meet it on its level. It just didn't work. There is nothing here from the original film that I liked so much. Waiting almost 2 years for this to drop, it's gonna sour some people. Gotta be honest with you. Whether they will come back for the TV series remains to be seen, but I do hope there is better and brighter on the horizon for it. Because if this is an accurate reflection of how the rest of that series will go, we're gonna have issues.